All right, let's bring in South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, thank you. Number one, shooting a police officer is not a protest. That's a crime.
Absolutely. We need to get further details about it. Nonetheless, and when you look at the, there was rage in Louisville after it was announced that the grand jury would not indict anybody for her death. Do you understand the frustration?
Yeah, so you have 3 police officers that went to the grand jury. One was indicted for reckless endangerment, but murder is a specific intent crime, at least first-degree murder. You meant to kill this person with malice and forethought. I doubt if they knew Miss Taylor. I think they went into the wrong apartment and things really got out of hand. So murder, I think, would be impossible to prove here. These police officers did not get up that day, that night, go in planning to murder Miss Taylor. Now, lethal force, the use of deadly force, has to be analyzed. Police officers are allowed to do it under certain circumstances. The grand jury heard the evidence. 2 of the officers were not indicted. 1 was. And that is our legal process. The Attorney General of Kentucky is a very talented man, and the law was applied to the facts in this case. People don't like the outcome. I understand the frustration, but we can't be a country of mob rule. We can't just try people as a mob. We have to have a legal process, and it was used here.
All right, Senator Graham, let's talk about the replacement for Justice Ginsburg. I know that you said yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, that you're looking to start a confirmation hearing the week of October 12th. Is that true, and can you tell us more about the timeline?
Well, I haven't released the timeline yet, but the earliest anyone's ever had a hearing from the time of nomination to hearing was 10 days with Justice John Paul Stevens, and I think Justice Berger, from the time he was nominated, the hearing was held, I think, within 10 or 12 days. We're looking at a time schedule like that. We're going to make sure that the Democrats get a chance to challenge the nominee, not abuse the nominee. We're going to try to let the American people look at this nominee. I think it's going to be a highly qualified woman who will impress the country. We'll try to make it a circumstance where you can learn about her, learn about the law, learn about the Senate. I want it to be meaningful. I want it to be challenging, but we're not going to let it become destructive as it was in Kavanaugh.
The president wants it done before November 3rd because of the tightness of the election and the role the Supreme Court could play. What are the odds of that happening?
My goal is to get the nominee through the committee process with a meaningful hearing, a probing hearing, get it to the floor in time for Mitch McConnell to process the nomination, get a final vote before the election. A 4-4 Supreme Court is not a good deal for America. We need a 9-person Supreme Court. And people wonder about the peaceful transfer of power. I can assure you it will be peaceful. Now, we may have litigation about who won the election, but the court will decide, and if the Republicans lose, we will accept that result. But we need a full court, and I think that's possible before the election. The committee will do its work. We'll be thorough, we'll be fair, but we'll be firm.
All right. Senator, I want to ask you about a Senate report. I'm going to read this because it's complicated. Senate report alleges Hunter Biden received millions from the wife of the ex-Moscow mayor, paid suspects allegedly tied to trafficking rings, and had contacts with individuals linked to the Chinese military. If his last name were Trump, forget about it.
Well, if his last name were Trump, every newspaper in the world would make it headlines. Every Republican would have a microphone stuck in our face. What do you think about Trump Jr.? You just fill in the name, getting millions of dollars from a corrupt gas company in the Ukraine. What do you think about one of the Trump kids flying on Air Force One and getting a $1.45 billion deal with the Chinese bank? It would be unrelenting. The double standard is real. Back to the nomination. They're going to try to destroy the nominee. The liberal media with the Democratic radical left tried to destroy Kavanaugh. This is going to be the Super Bowl of politics. Act ACT Blue raised $150 million right after the death of Justice Ginsburg within 3 days. My opponent raised $6 million. I'm being outspent 4-1, outraised 5-1. LindseyGraham.com. If you want to help me close the gap, I need some help. So we're about to go into the Super Bowl of politics, a Supreme Court confirmation. There's so much going on. The double standard is stunning. Look and see how this nominee will be treated compared to what liberal nominees, how they get treated with the kid gloves. Look at the Hunter Biden report. If it had been a Republican, the whole world would be blowing up right now. At the end of the day, folks, we live in contentious times and we got to fight back, but always focus on what's best for America. What's best for America is to have a full court, 9-member court to decide this election if there's litigation. What's best for America is for everybody, regardless of party, to be held accountable for the law. For breaking the law, including Democrats. What's best for America is for cops to be, their conduct to be scrutinized, but they not be ridiculed and presumed guilty before they have their day in court. That's what's best for America.
What's going on? Your running mate has all of this money, millions of dollars. I don't remember that ever being the case.
Your opponent,
I mean, your opponent, not your running mate.
Yeah.
Your opponent in South Carolina. It's a tight race. It's a tough race. He has a lot of money. Are these? I'm reading in the state newspaper. This is anti-Lindsey Graham super PAC money.
Yeah. Well, no, it's ACT Blue money. 48% of the people who gave money to ACT Blue were unemployed in 2019. 4% of Win Red. This is a vehicle to get low-dollar donations. My opponent will raise almost $100 million, Ainsley, in the state of South Carolina. The most money ever spent in the history of the state on a Senate race was by me in 2014 when I spent $13 million. He raised $6 million from the time Justice Ginsburg passed away within 72 hours. And God bless Justice Ginsburg. We're celebrating her life. I appreciate waiting to Saturday to announce the replacement, but I'm being killed financially. This money is because they hate my guts. I stood in the way of Kavanaugh. I stood up for Kavanaugh at a time when they wanted to destroy his life, and I've dared to help President Trump, the unpardonable sin of a Republican. So the wrath of the left is coming down on me, but it's all of us. All of us are getting outraged. To those who are listening who want to help Republicans fight back, get on our websites, LindseyGraham.com. $5 or $10 goes a long way if enough people do it.
Yeah, the president's being outspent on an average of 2-1.
It's unbelievable.
Senator, the president yesterday, when asked about, he's so upset about these ballots and the fact that they're flooding the zone with ballots. He was asked yesterday about what happens if you lose the election. Will you accept the results? He says, we're going to have to see what happens. You know, I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster. What do you say about this, being that this election's so tight and this very much could go into past November 3rd? Did the president speak in a way in which you can support?
Yeah, so here's the process. If you believe ballots were improperly given to people, if you believe they were improperly counted, you have a legal process. This is why we need a 9-member Supreme Court. We have the right in this country to challenge the election in the court. But here's what's going to happen. No matter who challenges the results of the election, eventually the Supreme Court is likely to hear that challenge. And when they rule, that is the end of it. Al Gore accepted his loss. 500 votes in the state of Florida, 5-4 decision in the U.S. Supreme Court. He accepted his loss. I want the American people to know that this will be a contest. There's a lot of shady things going on, but the courts will hear all of our complaints. The courts will decide, and we will accept the court's decision, Republican and Democrat. I promise you, as a Republican, if the Supreme Court rules in favor of Joe Biden, I will accept that result. My hope is that we have such an overwhelming victory, we don't have to worry about the courts.
Thank you for joining us on another slow news day. LindseyGraham.com. Sir, thank you very much.
Help. Thanks.
All right.